Hello everyone, welcome back. Thank you for checking it out / tuning in. Another week, another episode. Hi, I'm Brayden. Lon Young, if you need the full legal name, because I plan on getting deep into some topics this week. So let's start things off with how is everybody doing? I hope everybody's doing okay, as well as me, if not better. That would be just wonderful. What else is up? I tried to think right before I started, has anything happened this week? And I suppose we could talk about what's new before we cover anything in last episode, which is just a segment, which is not necessary. But in any case, I don't know how to get into this, but right off the bat here, it would be, let's just see how we navigate this conversation, much like I did with the seemingly homosexual in the park when I went to the park that one day, a bunch of weeks ago. Let's just see how this turns out. I was attacked, leaning a little heavy on the I that time, but attacked might not even be an appropriate description. I was starting to feel like this shouldn't be the first topic already, but this is somewhat therapy for me, isn't it? It's just a vlog. So I was, what do you do if you're, let's say, on the job and your job is to be a man first, and you get, let's say, might be a strong word too, bothered or pressured from the opposite sex, seemingly. Again, let's see how we navigate this. On your job, it's sort of like women in the workplace, maybe, but not necessarily, because this person wasn't a coworker. So just sort of in doing business, what do you do if somebody comes at you with strongly with propositions for activities outside business, right? And I would say the only reason why I've fumbled into this scenario, pretending that I'm a professional at all times, even though it's my job to be a male first, and I'm sort of afraid that family would stumble across this, how do you say, paragraph in my diary. But if someone comes at you of the opposite gender with pressure to perform as a dude, and that's what happened to me this week. And I already forgot, thanks to the alcohol, I've already forgotten if I mentioned this, but I mean, I already lost my train of thought, really. But so you're in a work situation, and it's the lines are being blurred in terms of what you can. Oh, that's what I was gonna say. So I feel like I would only have been in this scenario. In fact, it came across my mind. Excuse me, I'm just trying to navigate this. I hope everybody's doing well, and this isn't the most important thing we could talk about. For sure, we have things from last week's episode that I didn't cover in terms of what's in the news, but like I said last week, my car had been broken into, and I was sort of recovering from that, feeling like I do a lot of work, and I'd love to talk more about that later, right after. But I feel like I'm pouring a lot into my work, despite maybe some accumulating bills and whatnot, during these times, and it can get a little, excuse me, it can get a little tiresome trying to keep up the grind when random strangers are trying to slow you down. And by that I mean breaking into your car, stealing possessions and stuff like that. So maybe I wouldn't have been in this scenario in any other moment. Maybe I would have. However, it did happen, and one thing leads to another sort of situation, and you are bothered. Listen, I don't even want to say this was on the job for potential legal reasons, but if the person opposite me says they don't bite, don't worry, I don't bite, then maybe I shouldn't care so much. But what do you do? What do you do in this day and age, right? It's essentially possibly crossing the line. There's a 50-50. To give a great example, it's a scenario where your, let's say, employer is paying you half of what they should possibly pay, which in my opinion, I love my job. I think they're paying me enough. But half of what they should be paying you, or at least discounted, because you're using your car, and I think it's pretty clear at this point what the scenario is. However, the person on the other end of business is asking for, let's say, private information or private action, right? So what do you do? What do I do? This week, I feel like I fell short of what is 100% professional. And, I never know how guilty I am, because to get straight to the point, people aren't checking people's IDs in situations that I land in, especially the one that happened this week. So what do you do if your manhood is on the line and somebody, right? I mean, what do I title this podcast? Because I plan on getting into heavier stuff later. But it was the strangest of scenarios, one that I wouldn't wish upon anybody else, because you get your, maybe I could argue you get your rocks off or whatever, even if that wasn't the case. And all is good and fine and dandy, and nobody needs to know. But here I am on my blog, sort of one for one with you guys, if you will, on my privacy or my updates on my weekly life. I wish this podcast / vlog, would be every 10 days so that it wouldn't be weekly. But having said that, maybe we'll get there one day. But having said that, I feel like I succumbed to pressure and sort of shouldn't be wearing a button down this week. Anyway, you'll see my smile or whatever if you're watching, and I definitely would like to add this to the audio platforms as well, so that you couldn't necessarily see it. But it's not a smile from, well, maybe it is a cheeky little smile from possibly getting away with something, but maybe maybe it isn't, because I plan on avoiding these scenarios at all costs, and I think that was the message well sent from my end. But one thing, like I said, leads to another, and boy, I thought I had, watching or listening to last episode, I thought I had too much confidence coming off. It seems like I'm just in the same vibe, no matter how energetic I am. It sounds like I'm in the same vibe every week. As long as I'm at this or more energetic, I'm okay. But it's important that I give you the most that one person could give. And though it may not be my vibe every week, excuse me for using the term so often here, but though it may not be my level of energy every week, I should be required to perform as soon as I hit that record button on the audio, because the video, you can have that running for 20 minutes before getting things started. And maybe one day I do have a paywall that you can get behind, and I'll show you the behind the scenes. I would think that would be the only reason for a paywall. Extra episodes? What are we doing here? Extra episodes? Anyway, so did I really fall short of anything? I think, everything was discussed. Everything was discussed in the 30 minutes or whatever that Sunday morning. But, let's say every hurdle was climbed and stuff and whatnot, but I got a little action this week, whether I like it or not, because it's tricky and stuff, and this is what I would want to talk about. So I don't really care about all that stuff, and you could call it a cheeky grin if you want to. The reality is, if somebody is, let's say, identifying as a different sex and coming on to you, do you respect it? So we talked about a little bit about trans vestite versus transgender last week, I believe. That was the week before, right? So we may as well try and cover it this week. If somebody is identifying as something, anything, are you incumbent to, give them their full right to be whatever they want? And, sheesh, I mean, if you can put 2 and 2 together, then I think you get the full story. But my thing is, was I really at the mercy of, let's say, pressure to perform extra? It's very difficult to have to come up with the terminology, but extra I don't know. But overperform on the job, right? Perform outside of your work when being pressured and stuff. And You know, I've dealt with a lot of flirting in the past and stuff, and it happens and things get spicy on my job specifically. Again, trying to navigate this legally as well. But should I have to respect anybody's identity if they, you know, I don't know, right? I mean, I guess what I'll say is in the scenario that I ran into this week, whether it be on the job or not, do I need to, if you're paying me, do I need to respect your choice of identity? And I suppose I'll leave that with you, right? So all of a sudden it's like, is this story a fellatio story, or is it about people's, you know, progressivism in social and society or whatever, in the new social atmosphere or whatever. And I would hate to have a kid, because we're all sort of dealing with the same changes and stuff like that. I would hate to have to explain this to a child. What I said to a family member, distant somewhat family member, younger female family member, is it's certainly going to be unpredictable. So anyway, but if they're paying me, whatever you want me to call you, or whatever you would like to be, you can be. So that happened, and let's move on. As long as there's no like over emotions, I was gonna say hate, but as long as there's no, you get it. All right. So that's what's new, but there's other segments to cover, and the next segment would be I'm trying not to look at my notes, would be, feel like I did a lot of work. So if you're asking, how is this guy, before he turned on the camera or whatever, how is this guy doing? I've worked practically all day today, and I've certainly been working back-to-back hours, for long hours, in the past few days. So I'd hate for this to come off as, and I only give this one shot. I don't try and redo stuff. I've never redone anything since maybe episode 3 or 5 or 7 or something like that. But so if it sounds like I'm coming at you with a little bit of stressful extra energy, then you are correct. I am trying to up the energy levels, because I don't want this to be an audio thing if I don't have to, because I don't want to have to research what it takes to signing up, putting out your little vlog on Spotify. You know what I mean? So where do we stand on that? Much like, what words are we going to accept as the older generation and officially put in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, or maybe even urban slang or whatever? What are we going to tolerate / what do we expect our children or nephews and nieces to tolerate in this new day and age, right? And I believe in the internet. Thank whoever for the internet, but God, if you will. I mean, as of this week, we've had some good. The internet has done us good. I'm not going to update you guys on my prediction from a couple weeks ago, or maybe that was, I'm not going to bother with that stuff. but essentially the internet is hopefully moving the ball forward, and maybe we can all get on the same page at some point, sometime, hopefully sooner rather than later. What do I have for you? Let's look at the notes. Last week I wanted to this is the heavier topic I wanted to talk about, but in the segment we call What Happened Last Week, can you explain, or maybe explain that joke? Or I talked about Bryan Callen, but not enough. And I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page. I don't want to turn this into what's happening on Reddit, because I feel like if I go on Reddit, not a page that I frequent often at all, that I will see a lot of subreddits or boards on what's happening in Bryan Callen's world. And I just feel like because I covered it a little bit, and I would love to say that I think Brendan Schaub, his former co-host, hopefully future co-host, is great. I'm not going to pull up my drink and then put it back down. Let's take a sip. If you're thirsty, grab a glass of water, whatever it may be. But I wanted to cover it because it's disingenuous, and we're sort of all watching the same show, and to the degree that we care to pay attention to it or not. But I love Bryan Callen, and I think the joke about the joke that he says on podcasts where he explains that he's the lead expert in aviationary comedy or whatever. I can't get enough. He reminds me of a mutual friend I grew up with. His bottom line, fundamental foundation, where he's coming from, his comedy is, he can be one of the best, if not the best. So I hear that from him, from some podcasts I've watched one time or another, that he used to do a show with Joe Rogan. It used to be him and Joe Rogan. And oops, may I be talking too much about comedy already and not trying to, lose any viewers / listeners. That is, if you're not looking at the screen. But I think what we're watching is we're all in the same boat, and I don't actually know if this is on a Reddit sub board or whatever, but we're all sort of paying attention, especially if it's me and at least one of my subscribers. Hello, Paolo. And the reason I love the name is because it has an O at the end, and also I once knew a young boy named Paolo, and we got along rather swell. I could almost tell you a story, but we'll save it for later. But yeah, all this drama about, what's going on with the fighter and the kid, and the new iterations and what might possibly happen in the future. I just wanted to make sure that it's too much on me to not talk about. I have no connections in the comedy industry or whatever, or, the industry that I am currently trying to pursue or get involved in or whatever. And at some point I feel like I should read some of my stand-up comedy bits at you off the screen, or do a stand-up open mic sooner again rather than later. But it's not fair on the image of this vlog if I don't cover it enough, and what are my real opinions about the guy and stuff. And I don't think I think it's very interesting what's happening, but I don't think it's honest if I'm not actually addressing the topic straight off the hand. So what I mean by that is, did Bryan Callen, and I know he denies it 100% outright, but I've seen the show where you see the comedy world, it's all broken up and people are scattering. That's what's happened. Seemingly at the same time that his scandal broke, people have moved to different states, including his best friend. And yes, I'm talking about the #1 podcaster. Though I may listen to many other podcasts that are fighting for the #1 spot, including the New York Times and stuff like that. But you have a guy who shook up the world, really shook up at least the podcast world with his scandal. And it's not fair on me to not come at you with what I think is going on. And without saying outright that I think he's guilty of some part of that, I think he's guilty of something. Here's the thing is, this podcast he did with Theo Vaughn this past weekend, great show. So glad he could have his friend or buddy in the business, at the very least, on his show and ask him direct questions and stuff like that. I think Mr. Bryan Callen is sort of avoiding something. And that's really all I wanted to say about that. It's just it's standing up for what is a boy versus girl stuff, and it's not my job to elaborate, how do you say that? To be extra intelligent on a topic like this, but just that I know that maybe Theo knows that we're watching. And I'm not going to call them by their first names if I don't know these people. I've seen Theo Vaughn in real life. And by that I mean walked right past him while he was possibly talking to one other person sitting down, and didn't address him or say hello or anything like that. I'm a big fan, but I'm not going to bother anybody in their work environment, especially because I'm just a newbie in the game. But having said that, and it's not like I would bring up this or that any of this had even happened at that point. But if I could address him directly, I would say, I think you're doing a great job. Not that he's going to watch this, but Mr. Vaughn, Mr. Vaughn, you're doing a great job. I think it's a little bit wily, if that's the right term, that people would be, considering LA/Nashville or wherever he is, and buying property and whatever he has to go through. I think he's the clue, the major clue in all of this. His friends moving to Austin, his very close friend moving to Austin and having all this stuff. It's all just very much a sort of a gossip Reddit board that I haven't searched and will not. But for the sake of being 100% honest with this vlog I'm doing here, I think, all this will pan out hopefully and stuff like that. But my love for the comedy community is so great that to not address this even lightly is, I mean, I wish I could talk to everybody about this in private, you know, and not bring it up on a public platform, but especially would love to talk to Bryan Callen himself. So without overusing all their names and stuff or getting too much into gossip, it's interesting what's going on, and I think we're all in the same boat. We're all watching it happen, because right here is a sort of a battle between sexes, but also we have the last, like Ricky Gervais says, the last stance for what is free speech. This community, this comedy community, the stand-ups, the people that are not signing giant contracts with corporations and stuff, you know, there are, you know, weapons being flung straight into the heart of the community. And I feel like to some extent it's anybody's job to not dismiss it, but acknowledge it, especially on a private level, but maybe even somewhat publicly. The poor community has been shaken up, and I'm not accounting for Joe Rogan's move to Texas to be directly related, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. And boy, oh boy, do I feel like I got myself in deep water here, but I'd rather talk about it than not talk about it. And then what am I going to title this piece of shit episode? Having said all of that, so we watch it play out. I know Mr. Callen has been using the judicial system to defend himself, and so be it if necessary. I'm not saying I don't believe anything he says or anything like that. It's just that you really gotta, we talked a lot about guilt last episode. You really gotta, everybody's really gotta own up to things that they've done in their past. That's why I bring up the first topic first, because, you know, I mean, I would love to have many viewers and have a major spike in income, and not have to worry too much about being a taxi driver every day or every other day, but not more than that, of my life for the remainder of my life. I'd love to have a decent living, and as well as everybody and stuff like that. But so having said all that, let this not be a Reddit board because I brought it up, but just that, you know, without addressing anybody in specific or what, that I see what's going on, and hopefully we all see what's going on. Do you need the armpit check? Because I'm definitely sweating. So you probably can't see it. I can see what you're seeing on this arm, and there's not much to be shown. But I promise when I wear lighter colored shirts, I'll show you how sweaty my armpits are. If I give you a real time, if I had to give you a real time update on how sweaty my armpits are right now, talking about this and the subject we talked about before, I would say that my armpits are definitely sweaty. But how about moving on? Let's just move on, okay? Enough about that. I'd like to see, what I'd like to see is that what I would love to see, maybe we're not moving it on at all. I'm gonna take a big sip of this whiskey. Can't believe I'm gonna say this, and then certainly gonna have to take a shower, much like last episode where you have to take a shower after you get this deep in the gossip of the, especially the community you plan on joining and stuff. I don't want to, when I show up to anywhere and see anybody, I definitely don't want to be the guy that talked publicly about everything he thought. That's not what I want to be. So this is why I feel like navigating all this stuff is tenuous, or whatever the proper term is. Here we go. I think it would be better, maybe we'll wrap it up after this. I had one topic in the news. We'll see what happens, but it might be better if you did do something. Here's the thing. Why would a woman come out with a salacious story about what happened between you and her for no reason? Okay, I think we talked about it all now, right? So, what's in the fucking news, right? Now, all I wanted to talk about was there is this congresswoman in California, I believe, who has come out with a scandal about her. Ooh, sounds like I'm a female at this point, and I am, but I'm trying to be responsible and talk about what's, on the front lines of what's happening. This affects the entire world. So Representative Katie Hill, I believe is her name. I looked it up in Google on LA Times right before I started this, but also last week, right before I started last week's episode, we never got to it. So Miss Katie Hill, Mrs. whatever her prefix is, surname, whatever. Congresswoman has lost 2 rounds of jurisdiction where the judge has decided that her video that she's in, which is essentially revenge porn, her ex-husband, published a video online of her. I believe just by the description, I heard some of this on the radio and I read some of it on LA Times, her combing a friend's hair and in the nude or something, and she's got like a tattoo of a cross, I don't know where it is, a burning cross or something like that, where she lost the case, or she has lost 2 rounds of the case for what should be revenge porn. And that's where I'm at, is as a little boy with older sisters, it's my job to stand up for the women here, much along the same lines as, here I go off screen, much along the same lines as the last topic and the topic before we just talked about. What should be revenge porn, a case that has broken and it's in the courts and stuff. What should be revenge porn is being decided by judges one after the other, at least one anyway. I'm not so knowledgeable about the system and stuff like that, but I can at least say one judge, Yolanda something or other, has decided that this case is protected by the First Amendment, which means her video that you see, and I haven't watched it, I haven't seen it, I haven't even seen images of it, but they're saying, the courts are saying that this shall be protected by the First Amendment because she's an elected official, And I don't know how much I agree with that. It's just a fascinating topic. How much do you agree with, just because she's a congresswoman, does that mean that her ex-husband can release naked images of herself depicting not only the tattoo, which could mean something like salacious? I don't even know what it means. I forgot what I heard on the radio. Something like doesn't believe in something or other, some basic human moral something or other. But also there's a bong in the video as well. She's holding a bong or something like that. Does that really matter either? Or does that really matter at all because weed is legal in California? So it's interesting, and it's something to talk. I wish I had someone to talk about when it comes to this, because I'm more about to have one instance of revenge porn, unless this goes to the higher courts, be valid. So this is the beginning of the end when it comes to revenge porn. And I would never, if I did, and I'm not trying to be too, definitely not trying to brag, but also definitely not trying to cross any line when it comes to, if I were to ever have video of any female, would I ever release it ever in any case? Sounds like a bitter ex-husband, and the case should be thrown out right there. I mean, shouldn't you look for motives? So we have a situation where somebody has, I'm just looking for my, oh, that's too far away. Just looking for my ashtray. But yeah, so I think you get the gist. I don't think it's right. I say that to not only the members of my family, the close members of my family that I love and whatnot, but also to the general public. You really shouldn't be able to release this stuff. It really shouldn't be. So hopefully the higher courts, and I know where we're at. I know where we're at when it comes to, ooh, I like slurring. When it comes to the higher courts and stuff, maybe we go to the highest court in California and then we go to the Supreme Court. I know where we're at. Maybe that was the highest court and the Court of Appeals, and we head to the Supreme Court next. I think it's incumbent of the Supreme Court to say, yo, please. Like, I think that the Supreme Court would want to take this case. And I know it only takes 4 out of the 9 Supreme Court justices to approve looking into a case and stuff like that. Much like I did with the prediction of the Chauvin case, Derek Chauvin or whatever, I would hope that the Supreme Court would look at anything like this, anything whatsoever, and say, a woman's privacy is her own. It doesn't matter what it might entail. A bong in California, a cross tattoo, maybe it was burning. I forget what the detail was, but Miss Katie Hill, I'm on your team there. And as much as all men get rejected by females from an early age onwards, I still think women are cool and they deserve as much privacy as anybody else. It's not fair. I don't think whether you're representative on the Hill or whatever, I don't think flat out you should be, worried about what your, at the time, husband, he wasn't even a boyfriend, films you doing or whatever, right? And so this is her brushing somebody's hair. I mean, ugh. I think she has her breasts out. In fact, I'm tempted to look at it at this point. Now that I got my opinion out there. But good luck to her. At this point, I mean, Yolanda sounds like a female's name, and it is. I wonder if there was a previous judge that was a female. You know, these cops, the female cops from the stories I'm hearing, and this is just daily interactions with random strangers. I'm hearing that these female cops are not taking it easy on the women. What do we do, right? Before I get out of here, I want to cover this. So apparently the women have been catching wind that the males are very friendly. They must be. This is not necessarily a fact, but they must be catching wind that the male officers are letting the females go on a regular basis for just, how do you say, emotional reasons. You get out of this ticket here and there and whatnot. If you're a little flirty or you're a little kind to me, you can possibly get out of this ticket. Where are the women? Where are the women? It should be the woman's job. The female police officer, should be her job to select, acknowledge the marginalized population that is female and let them get off. I hear too many stories, people. I do. So maybe it's because the men are so lenient on, what is drunk driving or whatever, that the females have to come in and do the right job. But I'm tempted to say, how about we straighten this out? Figure it out, something. The men have to hold it down, and then the women can help the marginalized of the population, and everybody's happy. But it sounds like male cops out there, this is, sounds like you're lackadaisical or leaning on, you're, I don't know. Anyway, I think you get what I'm saying. It's been too long. Oh my gosh, we've gone way too long. What a show. I mean, because we covered a few hot topics, that's all. And let's just leave it at that, okay? So it's been fun. I hope that I brought you more energy than I have in the past, because I want to yell at my camera, but I want to also, I'd love to be chill and be the person that is hang outable, but it's more important that I give you all my energy, bang, 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 and then you don't know anything about what my regular energy is in normal life, because it's just a show. Okay. So having said that, thanks for checking it out. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see all these problems resolve themselves in the future and stuff like that. I don't necessarily plan on keeping keeping up with them and then discussing them on a regular basis. I just wanted to get it all out there, and then I'll take a shower. I mean, I feel worst about talking about gossip in the comedy community because it's a area that I plan on squeezing into. But having said that, hopefully this has been good enough in terms of one episode's worth, and may I see you next time around. And I think we covered everything. I don't really feel like looking at my notes. I don't really, I'm sure I covered everything in the notes, but I don't. Anyway, so I love you all. Thanks for checking it out. And by all, I mean at least one person. You know what I've been seeing? I checked my YouTube studio page, and I saw that the average time people are watching is for 5 minutes. So I might as well give you 5 minutes and something. I might as well give you the hottest baked bread right out of the oven, back to back, right? And that's the secret to a good sandwich, is the bread. So I hope you enjoyed it, and you know, have a good week. And I think that's all. I noticed that I've been saying my goodbyes are much reflective on what I have been going through. So this one is for you in earnesty. I hope you had a good week, and I hope you have a great next week in terms of managing your schedule and things of that nature. So, love ya. Only if you love me. If you hate me, make sure to react in the, you know, buttons you press or the comments section. I'm there, but I prefer neutral stuff because it's titillating. I know that's an exaggeration of the term, but whatever you do and whatnot is, I'm paying attention. All right. Thanks, Paolo, for the question. I didn't answer it this week, but it's not that important, you say. So we'll get to it if we run into a bunch of questions in a row or something like that. I appreciate it. Thank you. And I'll address it some other time, perhaps. Okay. Love you guys. Wow. We did it. All right, just turn on and then go. Okay. Love you. Cheers.